Cześć everyone, it's Vicky here, and in this video I'm going to explain when, why and how to use the transform node in Houdini. So let's get started. I'm using built workspace, so the default one, and I'm going to create an empty geometry network. So let's click tab to go to the tab menu and then type geo and enter to create it. Now let's dive inside this geometry network. And in here, I want to create a sphere. So at the moment, we do not have anything. So let's go to the tab menu again, type sphere, enter to create it. Okay, and let's have a look at the sphere settings. So select this node, and now we can see that we can change the sphere radius. So this is the size of the sphere in X, Y, and Z axis. We can change the center, the same in X, Y, and Z axis. So just move the sphere around. Then we can rotate the sphere. Again, we have three values in here, so X, Y, and Z, and we can adjust the uniform scale. So this is the scale in all three dimensions at the same time. Okay, but is there any other way of changing these parameters? Yes, of course there is, because Houdini usually has several different ways of doing one thing. So how can we do that? Well, we can do that in the viewport. Make sure you have show handles selected. So you can see that if I select select option, I do not see the handles. So you need to have show handles selected. And now in the viewport, you will see these handles. And when you move the sphere around or scale it up and down, these values will change as well. So when I move it, you can see that the center values change. So you can either adjust it in here, or you can do the same thing in the viewport. So these are linked. Okay, let's revert these values to default. So let's right click on where it says radius and revert to defaults. The same on center, right click, revert to defaults, right click on rotate and revert to defaults and uniform scale. Okay. So there's also another way of doing that. So at the moment we are adjusting and we are affecting our original sphere, original 3D model. But what if you do not want to do that? For example, you want to have a placeholder in your scene because you do not have your 3D model finished yet. So you just place a sphere or a box somewhere, and then later on you replace it with a building. Then you do not want to affect the sphere because you will have a different 3D model later on. So what you can do is create something called a transform node. So let's go to the tab menu, start typing transform, and now make sure these two are linked. So the sphere is linked to the transform input and also display the transform node. Okay, and let's select it to see what options we have here. So we have very similar options as in our sphere. Okay, so that's the sphere. Let's select the transform again. So we can translate, rotate, scale, shear, and change the uniform scale. So let's see what happens if I move these parameters. So if I change the X translate value, you can see that the sphere moves. So this node, the transform node, applies translation to our sphere. But now if I display the sphere, so the blue flag on the sphere, you can see that the sphere is untouched. So it's not affected, it's not destroyed by whatever we do in the transform node. So we have our original sphere in here, and then we apply to that sphere this transformation. So let's maybe increase the scale as well, and I'll apply some shear so that we can see the difference. So that's our transform node, that's the original sphere. And the advantage of using that is that we can now, for example, create a box. Okay, and now let me display the transform node. So this is our sphere, and now I just link my box to the transform node, and now you can see it's exactly in the same position as the sphere. It also has the shear applied to it. The uniform scale is changed. However, the box itself, if I display it, is unchanged. So this is our original box. So you can do that also with, for example, file node. So if you want to use box as the placeholder and then import your 3D model using the file node, you will have that 3D model straight away in the place you want. What is more, you can keyframe some parameters in the transform node. So for example, animate the translation. So you go to the first frame, hold down Alt and click on the parameter that you want to keyframe. Now change color to green. Then I move, for example, 50 frames. I'll change that to 2. Hold down Alt again, click on the parameter, and now you can see that it's nicely animated. So it's a very nice way of creating a non-destructive network. So you do not change the original geometry, you just apply certain effects to it. Okay, but we also have one more way of adjusting the scale and the position of our objects inside the network. So let's go back to the object level, and in here select our geometry, and you can see that we have some options here as well. So we can translate, rotate, scale, pivot, translate, pivot, rotate, and change the uniform scale of this object as well. So I can adjust the uniform scale and move it using either these values or the handles in the viewport. However, this applies the transformation to everything inside our network. So let's go inside the network and create a merge node so that you can see it better. So merge, and now I will link my sphere and the box to the merge node. Okay, they are both in the same place, so I'll just select my box and move it to the side. Okay, so now you can see that in my object level, when I select my network and change the uniform scale, it will change the uniform scale of everything inside the geometry network. So if you want to change the scale or move just one object inside that network, so for example, just the sphere, you need to do that inside the network. Okay, one more very interesting thing you can do with the transform node is to use it to copy things. So let's say I have that sphere and I have the box, and now I want to have these here. So you can use that, for example, to create a table. So you would have 4 legs, but all the legs are created from a box. So instead of copying the box, I can just create another transform node here. Okay, so I create another transform node, and now using the transform node, I move these geometries in here, and then I use merge to merge these two transform nodes. And now I have only 2 geometries, so I have the sphere, one sphere and one box. However, using the transform node, I kind of copied these geometries to the side with some transformation. So as you can see, transform node is a very useful tool, a very useful node. So I would recommend using that every time you create a geometry. So you create a geometry and then drop down transform node. I got used to that and I do it always, and it really saves me time later on when I want to, for example, replace the box or my geometry with some other geometry, but leave the position and scale data. If you want to find out even more about the transform node, you can always go to the Houdini website. So let's select our transform node and then click on the question mark in here. And then it will open Houdini guide. And in the Houdini guide, you will have a lot of information about all the nodes in Houdini. So for example, the transform node. So all the parameters will be described in here. And also when you scroll down, what you will see is some examples of how you can use the transform node. So you can open Houdini scene and see how the creators used it. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you everyone, and I hope you enjoyed it.